Hello and welcome to Access Asia. I'm Delano D'Souza. Coming up, New Delhi opts for a muted response after US President Donald Trump goes after H-1B visas allotted overwhelmingly to Indian nationals. Historically close to Palestine, but now Indonesia's president calling for the safety and security of Israel in securing a two-state solution. And a throwaway line in a K-drama escalates into an all-out incident between China and South Korea. We'll tell you why the Tempest is stirring up a storm. But first, the US President Donald Trump has taken aim at the US's H-1B visa program. It's primarily used by big tech and outsourcing firms in the United States. Companies will now be required to pay a $100,000 fee for new applicants. While critics of H-1Bs argue they undercut the American workforce, supporters of the program, including Elon Musk, allege it allows the United States to attract top talent from around the world. Musk transitioned to an H-1B after completing his studies in the United States. So did India-born Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Alphabet, the parent company of Google, and Satya Nadella, Microsoft's chief executive. In fact, Indians make up the overwhelming majority of H-1B visa recipients. To talk more about this, we can bring in Nicolas Blarel, Associate Professor in International Relations at the University of Leiden. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. Given that all foreign nationals can be part of this H-1B visa program, but Indians take up the majority, the chunk of it. Is New Delhi being singled out?
Yeah, no, you point out an important factor. It's mostly Indians, about 71%, I think, last year of Indian recipients of the H-1B were Indians. And that's due to a lot of investment in STEM education, notably technological engineering, etc. So a lot of, and there's been this effort over years for Indians to the U.S. dreams for a lot of Indians to invest and go educate themselves in the U.S. and then apply to these H-1B visas.
During the UN General Assembly, we had the U.S. President Donald Trump, who took aim at India during his speech. Take a listen to what he had to say.
China and India are the primary funders of the ongoing war by continuing to purchase Russian oil.
Now, this H-1B visa policy comes on top of the 50% tariffs that were slapped on New Delhi just a couple of weeks ago. Could this be another way for the U.S. to go after India for purchasing Russian oil?
It could be seen, or at least it's probably perceived as such by New Delhi, as a series of unfortunate announcements that are impacting the relationship. As you said, the 50% tariffs, the 25% imposed because of the tariff negotiations, and then the 25% as secondary sanctions vis-a-vis what was just mentioned by Donald Trump with the buying oil from Russia as a sanction against that. This is another potential sanction. It's directly targeting mostly Indian immigrants. But it also is a long-term issue within the domestic constituencies supporting Trump, the MAGA constituencies, that always has seen this as a way for Indians to get easy access to certain visas and taking over maybe jobs that usually could be opportunities for U.S. citizens.
And what do you make of Delhi's response so far? Because it's been rather muted. Do you think Indian officials are hoping this gets struck down in the courts?
So there's that. There's actually, if you remember on the Trump's first term, he already had suspended the H-1B system, and he was overturned by a court. So this could be due to the muted response. There's also the fact that there's still negotiation going on for a trade deal that could reduce these tariffs. So they have to be careful about these multiple negotiations going on. And second, there's also a part of the Indian political and economic ecosystem that are seeing this as an opportunity to bring back talent back home.
Now, most Indians don't just turn up to the United States to work. They go to the U.S. To educate themselves first, and then they stay on to get jobs in H-1Bs. So will this policy force Indians to look elsewhere?
Definitely, because a lot of the H-1B applicants are people that have studied in the U.S. You mentioned a couple of examples, Nadella, Pichai. These are invested already close to $100,000 for higher education in the U.S. and then would have to bear the cost of another $100,000 to apply for the H-1B visa. So this is actually would become a very costly and then unattractive options for a lot of Indian middle class that have looked at the U.S. as the best option. They might look now in other markets. There's been efforts from Germany, Canada, and UK to try to...
Even France, too,
and even
to some
France
extent.
to some degree, maybe less. It hasn't been as trendy in social media. But there's been effort from these different countries to try to attract these talents that would look at other opportunities.
Has the relationship with the United States, between the United States and India, fundamentally shifted? Because we saw that, yes, Donald Trump did wish Narendra Modi a happy birthday on his birthday. Then we see this H-1B visa announcement. Can this relationship be fixed? Because it seemed that it is being tested time and time again.
There were very good strategic relations over the years, but this series of measures, which are hurting Modi at home, domestically, so Modi has to be seen as finding other diplomatic options. So that's why he went to the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in Tianjin. And he's going to have to diversify, notably when it comes to military supplies, when it comes to economic and trade. There's the negotiation, the FTA with the EU, which is also ongoing, because this. You know, there used to be a lot of suspicions about a greater partnership with the U.S. until maybe the early 2000s. The last 10 years, I've seen a dramatic qualitative increase in the relationship. But the last 6 months have put a lot of these bases, these foundations, since the nuclear deal of 2008 into question.
Very briefly, last November, when Donald Trump won the elections, officials in India were secretly celebrating. Do you think they regret that now?
I think they regret, and this is hurting them because the opposition is pointing that out, that there was if you see statements from Dr. Jaishankar, the external affairs minister from Modi, that they were welcoming the return of Trump. They had worked very well with Trump under Trump 1.0. They knew how to work with Trump. They were very optimistic. There was this first visit in February from Narendra Modi to DC, talking about how MIGA and MAGA can work together. We clearly see that Make India Great Again and Make America Great Again are not compatible. And we could see some problems in the relationship in the future.
Nicolas Blahel, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you for inviting me. Yeah.
Now, most Asian nations, except South Korea, Japan, and Myanmar, recognize the state of Palestine. Indonesia did so back in 1988. While Jakarta has historically been tied to the Palestinian cause, its current president is calling for the safety and security of Israel. Chloe Dupree reports.
Indonesia, the world's largest Muslim nation, ready to send 20,000 peacekeeping troops to Gaza. For the first time in a decade, an Indonesian leader addressed the UN General Assembly. President Prabowo reaffirmed his support for a two-state solution.
We must have an independent Palestine, but we must also guarantee the safety and security of Israel. Only then we can have real peace. Once again,
experts say Indonesia's relations with Israel are shifting. Jakarta was one of the first to recognize the Palestinian state back in 1988 when Yasser Arafat proclaimed independence. Officially, Indonesia has no diplomatic relations with Israel, but economic ties are on the rise. Cooperation in the tech space, surveillance, cybersecurity, manufactured goods, palm oil. Israel exports to Indonesia were roughly $50 million last year, modest but boosted by President Prabowo.
He's a foreign policy president and he wants to raise Indonesia's status on the international stage, that is for sure. And joining the OECD would make Indonesia the first Southeast Asian country to do so. And if that means normalizing relations with Israel, then so be it.
The process of joining the OECD, the group of countries promoting economic growth, is already underway. A smart political maneuver for some, or a risky move for others.
Moving to a culture story next, which has escalated into an all-out diplomatic incident between China and South Korea. It all started with a throwaway line in a TV series, and to tell us more about this, we can bring in Olivia Salazar-Winspear. Olivia, so tell us, how did this all get started?
Well, apparently the rift between the two countries was prompted by one line from a character in the Korean TV series Tempest, which is screened by Disney Plus and Hulu internationally. Now, the show focuses on a diplomat and a special agent, and that diplomat is played by Jun Ji-hyun. She's a very famous TV and film star in Korea. She's also known as Jana Jun. Her character says, why does China prefer war? A nuclear bomb could fall near the border. Now, this was taken very badly by Chinese users of Weibo, the biggest social media platform in China, as you know. They blamed the actress personally, saying she shouldn't have taken the part. She should have queried the script not to say that the whole series puts China in a very bad light. It's worth pointing out that Tempest was not officially broadcast in China. Those angry web users have seen clips online or illegally streamed it.
So what have the potential consequences been for this actress?
Well, she is a really famous face in Korea, and as a celebrity, she's fronted many high-profile international brand campaigns. She's modeled for Louis Vuitton, La Mer Cosmetics, Piaget, the jewelry and watch outfit, and those endorsements are still very visible on her social media. But when you look at, for example, LVMH or La Mer, they don't have any evidence of her on their accounts. This could be related to some of the pressure they've come under from angry web comments, for example, saying things like remove her or we'll boycott you on their social media channels. Now, Piaget still does feature Janajun. You can see from the comments on one of their posts, there's a large number of people showing those emojis there saying get rid of her. People are ready to blacklist the brand, so we'll see if her contracts with those fashion and beauty houses gets renewed.
But what is so crazy about the story is it's a fictional character saying something. It's not like she wrote it herself.
Yeah, it does seem a bit disproportionate. I agree. It's not actually the first time that artists have been caught in the crossfire between South Korea and China. There's been a sort of unofficial boycott of South Korean cultural products for almost a decade now, because before that we had the Hallyu K-wave of K-pop, TV, films that was sweeping the world, and China was a major market for that. The freeze seems to have started in 2017, just after Seoul decided to deploy a US anti-missile system, which Beijing interpreted as a threat to its military operations in the region. What happened then was that Chinese broadcast regulators cancelled or delayed Korean TV imports, despite there being a lot of popular K-dramas at the time. It affected music. K-pop bands saw their tours cancelled in China, or they couldn't get the necessary visas to perform there. There's been significant economic consequences for Korea. Of course, China's their biggest trading partner, and that cultural output is a big part of their economy. Now, China's never actually admitted to this ban. Some people thought it was actually easing off in recent months, but one feature I did notice was very noticeable by its absence. The mega hit movie K-pop Demon Hunter, you're aware of it, Delano, broke all records.
You'd have to be sleeping under a rock if you didn't know.
On Netflix this year. It's a record breaker. It's screened to millions around the world. It's not yet been shown in China, despite clear demand. There's no real talk of it happening, just vague talk of distribution, perhaps in or after October of this year.
Thank you very much for that, Olivia. Olivia Salazar-Winspear there. And that's it for this edition of Access Asia. From all of us on the team, thank you very much for watching.